All right, good morning, everyone. I'm taping. Today is Tuesday, the 14th of February, and we're going to do a couple different things today. First of all, I'm going to go over the Chapter 10 Shape Up CSS Grid example, and then after that, I'm going to go over some additional CSS, both Flexbox and Grid examples, and I put those things out into a repo, and I'll explain what all that is about in just a little bit. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the 15th, I'm going to at least lecture on chapters 11 and 12, and we should get into 13 as well, especially 12 is a very short chapter. We'll build a couple tables together so you can see some of the things for tables. That's 12. 11 is on fonts and images. I don't think that'll take real long either, which should get us into chapter 13, which is on forms. All right. If we don't finish it, and I don't want to go longer than maybe 10, 10:30, something like that tomorrow. Then Thursday we'll finish up 13, 14, and 15. Friday will be our typical lab day. And your chapter 10 written test and your labs and your homework, I still expect you, even though I'm going through the shape ups for 9 and 10, I still expect you to do those. That doesn't mean that you don't do them. All right. So those are due this Sunday, and then the chapter 11 through 15 work will be due the following Sunday. All right. So with that said, let's just get started. So again, after today, we've already finished section 1 of the book. After today, we're basically done with section 2 of the book. All right. So tomorrow we move on to section 3. And by the end of this week, we'll have finished section 3, which means what's left will be 16, 17, and 18. I plan on covering all three of those next week. All right, I think I've said this to you already, but in case I have not, we will have one more test, and that test that we have will be on chapters 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. I may give you a test/assignment on chapter 10. I don't know yet. All right. And chapter 16, 17, and 18, I will go over them next week. I'm not going to give you any homework. I'm not going to give you any labs. I'm not going to give you any written tests on 16, 17, or 18. So my hope is by the end of next week, we'll be finished with this book totally, which means that next Monday, which is, I think, the 27th, yes, we will be spending that whole week going over Bootstrap, all right, the whole week. And you'll get some kind of an assignment and probably have some kind of a project that you'll have to work on as well. All right. You'll get plenty of time to work on that because, for lack of better words, that will sort of be, what do we call it? The midterm exam. All right. Then after that, so my hope is that in this first week of March here, okay, we will be in the first week of March, we will be into the other book. So we'd be talking JavaScript. I should also mention, in case you didn't know this, that next Monday, there are no classes. Next Monday, to my knowledge at least, unless it's been changed, next Monday is President's Day. And Rankin always closes for President's Day. I can check that out by just going out to insiderankin.org. And it should say something in here once I log in. See, February 20th, President's Day, all school holiday. So there are no classes on that day. All right. All right. So with that said, let's get into this. Double check, make sure that there's nobody waiting to get in here. And there are not. It's just me right now, and that's totally fine. All right. So let's get in and start working on this. All right. What I've got here is a working copy of chapter 9. There it is, and it uses Flexbox. All right, it uses Flexbox for this, for the home page, and I think for the strength training it was. Okay, so we've got that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chapter 9 that I currently have, which is, where did I just put it? Right here. And I'm going to make a copy of it. And I'm going to paste it. I'll paste it right there. And I'm going to call this one now Chapter 10. All right. And that's the one that I'm going to be working with right now. Okay. So with all that said, let's jump over and take a look at what we're supposed to be doing in here. Okay. In this exercise, you'll create a stress relief page that's formatted using the grid layout. So this will be the page that we are supposed to be creating. Okay. So open the index.html file in the stress folder. This file contains the basic content for an under construction page. So in the stress folder, open up the index file that's in here, not very much in here as you can see. All right. Oops, wrong thing. Again, I've been working the last couple days. I got to be fair to all of you in here. So let me open this up, but let me open it up using, let me open up the whole project here, chapter 10, using code. Okay. All right. So open with code, and I want to get into stress, and I want to open up the index, and there it is. All right. So this says, delete the main element from the body of the document, then copy the meta element for the viewport, the link elements, the favicon, etc., from the index.html page for exercise 8. In addition, copy the header, footer, navigation bar, sidebar, and a section element before the sidebar. Ooh, that's a lot. All right, let's do this. Let's go and back to our main index.html here, and let's grab everything that's in there. All right, and we'll just grab all of it. Okay, and I'll grab a section here, and that's it. So I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. Then I'm going to open up the one under stress here, and I'm going to paste that in. Now, one thing they do tell us to do on here is to not use the submenus. So I'm going to get rid of that submenu, and I'm going to get rid of the submenu that's here as well. All right. Okay, now this is going to change. I believe at least it's going to change. If for no other reason, we want to say that this is the stress relief page. I think it is. All right. So let's see, what do we have here? We're going to have shape up, and I think we'll just put stress here. I don't know if they want something else here or not, but that's fine. So let's see, we still got the logo. Oh, that's an H2, so that's up here. We want to put that in. And our title, we want to put here stress. All right. So we've got our doc type, our language, our head, UTF-8, our viewport, our shape up, our favicon, all this other good stuff. We will not use this. We will be making a copy, and we will be having a stress.css, which we don't have in there now, and that's okay. Slick nav, jQuery, etc., etc. Okay, our head looks like it's done. Let's jump into the body section right here. All right, and we've got this H2. That should just say shape up. Find the best fit for you, the mobile stuff, etc. All this other good stuff. And then we're going to have a section. All right. And at the end of this, we're going to end the section. All right. And then after the section, we're going to have an aside. Okay. And after the aside, we're going to have our footer. And then our body and our HTML. Okay. Oh, got to end main too. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? And in our HTML. Okay, now remember two things. First, we don't have this style sheet made yet. This is not made. We will make that in just a couple minutes. And second, there's nothing in here. So there's nothing in the guts. So let's do a file, save all. And let's just come in and take a quick look. Again, it might look just terrible. And it does. Okay, not very much stuff in here. Doesn't look like it's even finding the, doesn't look like it's finding our image. So I think we'll need a /image. Let's see if at least now it's finding the image. There it is. Okay, so we're starting. All right, so I'm going to jump back into here. And it says, so we opened it up. Yes, we deleted the main element. We copied over the meta and everything, all that other stuff from an earlier chapter from our main. We copied the, we were supposed to copy the header, the footer, navigation bars, and the sidebar for the page. Well, we'll look at that. Next, we're supposed to create a new style sheet named stress and copy the styles from main RWD to this. Okay, so we'll make a stress.css in a minute and we'll modify the link accordingly. All right, so we are right here in the process. Okay, all right, so come in here and under our styles, all right, we don't have a stress yet, so let's go to our main RWD right here, and we're going to copy, and then we'll paste. And there it is, and we will rename it as stress.css. Okay, so that's done. And let's make sure up here, I think we had a stress.css already, but let's double check. And there it is. All right, so let me do a file save here. And let me jump back over to here and do a file save as well. And now let's take a look at what we have. All right. And it doesn't look like it's changed very much. Okay, not a problem. All right, let's go in and start writing the actual code that we're supposed to write. I think that's what we're going to do in here next. I deleted the submenus. All right. I want to modify the menu so that the stress relief is the current page and modify the links as necessary. Okay, let's do that right now. And then we'll come down and do the stuff on the next page here. All right. So let's see, modify the menu. Okay. So what we had been doing is saying what was current, right? So what we want to do is come in here and for the class equal current, we want that. We want that to be the stress class here. Okay. All right. So that's a start. And next, add the content from the stress relief.txt folder in the section. Format the content so that basically it looks like this. Okay, not a problem. We actually don't have that much to do. It's everything on this page here. So let me go in and see if I can find that. I'm going to just go over to the authors, what you guys have. Okay. And let's see. Well, I think we can do it like this. So it's shape up and it's the exercises and it's stress. Oh, we don't want it. It's style, text. And we want the, I don't know if we want stress relief or we want stress tips or tips rather. So let's grab them both. All right. And then let's come back here to our chapter 10, one we're working on right now. Let's just paste those in so we have them. All right. So we're told next, again, we want the stress relief.txt. All right, we want to copy or add that to the section. So the stress relief, okay, and we're going to add this to our section. Now it's not going to be formatted at all, of course, so it's going to look terrible. All right, so we'll just paste that in, and then we will start, I don't know, I guess we'll start coming in and making some changes, right? All right, so let's do this. All right, so let's move this over and get going. So stress relief, that's probably going to be an H1 tag. Okay, so that's a start. It looks like these are a bunch of paragraphs here, and some of them I think are headings. So I think this is a paragraph. So let's view and let's word wrap so it'll look a little nicer on the screen. So this will be the first paragraph. Again, we're wrapping here so it looks a little nicer. All right. Then we've been calling these using an H3 with this. So I guess we'll continue to do that. And it looks like we're going to have another paragraph underneath here. So we'll put that over here. All right. And it even looks like this looks like another paragraph just because of all the text. So we will grab this. Whoops, missed a line. And we will put that in here. And then we'll have another H3 here. And that's how to manage stress. All right. And it looks like in here, we've got another paragraph followed by an unordered list. All right, so here looks like our unordered list. And I'm just going to put these in right now. So for now, hey, let's move these over. I lost my ending unordered list tag. I don't know how, but I did. And that's okay. Oh, it's because I did not. I didn't move them up high enough. There we are. All right, let's do that like this. All right. Like this. I think this is the easiest way for me to do it. And then I'll get rid of the ones here. All right, and then I should be able to finish up the section. Now it's going to look somewhat better. All right, it's going to look somewhat better, but not a whole heck of a lot. All right, and I'm looking in here. We do have our stress.css, so hopefully it'll look a lot better, but let's see. All right. All right. Well, it's getting there, but for whatever reason, this find the best fit, our whole navigation section in here, um, let's see, stress.css. I think I made a stress.css, didn't I? So here's our styles. And under styles, there is a stress.css. So for whatever reason, it's not picking up everything right now. Not a problem. We're going to fix this momentarily. Now, the other thing we were told to do is I'm supposed to go in and for that aside, I'm supposed to just add all of this stuff. All right, these additional resources that are here, I don't want to type all that stuff in. That's kind of silly for you to watch me do that. So let's go back in and under stress, index. This is the stuff we just put in. So here's the aside. All right, and now that's done. Okay, and we've got our footer, which I believe just simply says ampersand copy. Now they have 2019. Let's make it 2023. And we'll say shape up. And that was put inside, I believe, of a paragraph. All right. So we should have all of our text in there now. To save all. Let's jump back in here. Take a look. All right. So there's everything. All right. So this is what we have right now. Okay, not a whole heck of a lot, to be honest with you. All right, but we do have all of the textual portion. I believe that that is all done. So going back into here then, add the content, we did that. Format the body of the page. We're going to do this next so that it uses a grid. All right, use any technique you want to position the elements on the grid. Format the navigation menu so that it also uses a grid. So these will both be grid containers, I believe. And specifications for it, a mobile phone and landscape orientation. So we'll do all this stuff. All right, so let's go in, and I believe the next thing I want to do here is start making changes to our CSS. All right, hopefully by doing that, we're going to pretty this up quite a bit. So we're inside of our stress.css. Let me close that so we've got some room, and let's just start. Font family looks fine. Width is fine. Max width is okay. Margin, padding, border, box shadow, those are all okay. So let's add the new stuff. Well, it's coming. You knew it. Display. Nice to spell it right. Grid. We'll have a grid template. And we'll tell it to repeat. For auto. All right. And we'll have 3 and 8. Okay, and I didn't put template there. Okay. In addition, we're going to have a grid, column, gap, and we'll set it to about 3%. All right. Now I have no idea just changing that because we haven't changed anything in the inside yet, if that'll change anything, but we'll take a look. Okay, still looks pretty nasty. So far, all we've added have been these 3 lines. Okay. All right, our H1, H2, H3 and paragraphs, that should be fine with no padding. Our A tag, text decoration, none, font weight bold, that's okay. Our hover should be okay. All right. And then coming in here, we are going to add something in here. All right. Why? Because we're starting to build out our grid areas. All right. So in here, we're going to say grid row 1, 2, and grid column 1, 3. All right. So all I did was I came in and added these 2 lines. So let's do a file save all. Still not showing us a whole heck of a lot. I could be referring to something incorrectly, but that's okay. We'll keep going. Header image. We've got our float left. We can keep that in there. Like technically, we don't really want to float anymore, but it's okay. Max width, etc. Our H2. That looks okay. Our H3. That looks okay. So the next thing we want to change is our navigation menu because we were told we were supposed to make some changes in there. So in our nav menu, we'll have in here grid row, and we will have a grid column. All right. Our UL, list style none. All right. We don't care about position anymore, but what we want to do in here is first get rid of margin and padding. We want to display grid here. And we're going to add a grid template. All right, so we added into the nav menu, we added these two lines. And into our nav menu UL, we added these two lines. All right. The LI, add a couple of things in here. We don't need the float anymore. Be honest with you, I don't think we need any of this anymore. We don't need the width either. So let's get rid of everything in here and replace that with what we want. All right, and that'll be, we want it to be text align center. Display block. Put a little bit of padding in. Background color. And text color. All right. And for this, for the current thing, so this was all we put in here. This is LIA. All right. And let's grab this. We also want it that when we hover over it, it's going to go black. ULLIA, not when we hover. It's when it's the current class. We want that one to be black. Again, we're just keeping up with the same requirements that we had earlier. All right. And again, we could be using the hex values as well in here. Probably should have. Okay. And let's come in here and do this. So when we are in the nav menu, ULLIA, and we do hover, or if we have the focus, in those cases, let's set the background color to a light steel blue. Again, this is just following what was shown in the book. Okay. That should be good. All that's, I don't think any of this is going to have, well, I don't even know if we need the rest of this stuff that's in here. I got rid of it. So let's see. I think we can get rid of this and all of this. All right. Some of it I just redid. So boom. All right. So here's the styles. And we're going to have to make changes in here because the section is something we also be working with. All right. The grid properties. So let's put in some padding here. We're going to go over an example later, and I think it's going to make a lot of this stuff clearer. At least that's my hope. All right, our H1 looks okay. I believe our H, We don't have an H3 and H2 in here anymore, so let's get rid of that. The H3, I believe, looks okay. The paragraph, I believe, looks okay. All right. Let's make sure that for the unordered list, there is no margin bottom. All right, which had been set a little bit earlier. All right, now let's go look at the aside. Again, everything that's in here that we have been setting up previously with floats and the like, now we're going back and we're basically redoing it. All right, and we're redoing it using CSS grid. Okay. So we got some padding. Our aside H2 looks correct. Our aside UL is correct. Our visited is fine. Our hover and focus is fine, which pushes us down to the bottom here of our regular code. All right, we haven't talked yet about the media queries. We will momentarily. But again, we don't want this. So we've got some padding. That looks okay the way it is. The background color is fine. But again, we want to put in a grid row. And again, we are just telling where this thing's going to basically start and for how long it's going to go. In a grid column. All right, then our footer, that looks good. Mobile menu, that looks good. And that brings us down to our media queries. All right, before we do that, let's do a file, save all, and let's take a look at this. Now it doesn't look any different, which kind of scares me. All right, so let's double check and first of all, make sure we're looking at the right thing. There's index.html stress, that's good. All right, stress index, class equal current, stress relief, that looks all right as far as I can tell. And we've got styles normalized, styles this, styles select nav. Yeah, we shouldn't need any longer. I can put that back in. The main RWD, I don't think we need that, but last time I didn't think we did and it looked like we did, so. Let me just grab this line right here. And I'm going to change this to main_RWD. All right. And let's do a file, save all, and now let's look at it and see if it prettied it up at all. Great. Somehow I closed everything. All right. Not a problem. We'll fix it right now. So. It's still not looking. What is going on here? The answer is always in the code. So stress index.html and styles. So let's double check we've got the right things in the right places. So stress index.html, and that's this. All right, styles, stress.css, and that's what I have been using. I don't know what the problem in here is, but we're going to keep looking until we figure out what it is. All right, let's start with media queries here. See what, if anything, we have to change in here. All right, for the 900, the body stuff is fine. All right, for the 767, we still don't want to display the nav menu, but we want to change the body around here. And we want to have the header changed too. All right. That slick menu stuff looks fine. We want to add a little bit of stuff to our mobile menu here. And that is, well, we already got the display block. We want the grid row and grid column here. All right. Steel blue stuff should be okay. The hover and focus should be okay. The H2 should be okay. Section, again, remember, we're getting rid of all this floats in here. So let's just get rid of all this. Right, and for the aside again, change this around. Right, then finally a little bit in here for the footer. Whoops, being consistent here with the way I'm presenting this. All right, and finally, the only thing that we have left is for 479. I think this is all okay. All right, so let me do a file, save all here. All right, now I'm not happy because right now my guess is I'm going to look at this and it's not going to look any different. So something is hosed in here and I don't know what it is. Let's see when I move it down. See, nothing's really working here, so something is wrong. So let's go and start by doing this. I'm going to close this, leave that open, and I'm going to close this. So let me do a file save, and let me do a file save in here. All right, and let me do a file save in here. All right, and let me close all these. All right, I should have made all of my changes now, but it sure isn't looking as though I did. All right, so this is stress. That's the index one. This is what I made all the changes to. I have styles. Under styles, I have a stress.css, which for whatever reason, it does not appear to be picking up. So let's look at that. There is stress.css right there. It's almost as though I spelled something wrong somewhere. All right. And I don't know if that's what's goofing things up or not. I have absolutely no idea. Because when I bring this back up, let's do it like this. All right. Now, when we go to stress relief, yeah, see what happens. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you look at this that it's hosed, for lack of better words. All right. It looks as though the information that's in here looks correct. Now, I do look here, I'm looking exercise, there's a greater than, and there's a greater than here. Let's look at those. So that is in the unordered list. Looked a little funky. Got that. But that all that is going to do is make it look a little funny when we print it out. So that should fix that. It'd be current for stress relief. And like I said, for whatever reason, it's not picking this up. Well, that looks like the problem under styles. It's not finding that file, but it is there. I just looked. So under styles, it's not picking up this file. I'm expecting something magical to happen here. In other words, I'm expecting it to pick it all up and find everything, but for whatever reason, this is not. Oh, goodness. Let's go look in here. There shouldn't be nothing in here that should affect this. That page is coming up just fine. We didn't change anything at all in here. Okay. The new ones we added were here and here. So let's take a look at both of these. Sure I didn't miss anything here. All right. So no, that all looks fine. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to remove that, see if that matters at all. But that's what they asked us to do there, was to set that up. It's probably something very simplistic, and I have nobody here who is catching me as I'm typing this in to tell me what my errors are. But it's all the text is there, but for whatever reason, it's not picking up my CSS file, and I don't know why that would be. Looking here, it says styles stress.css. So again, let's go back to here. Right, I'm making a copy here, and I'm just going to call this one old. Stress.css. There it is. But I don't know why that would change anything. And it does not. Huh. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I want to see if it's a problem with my CSS file. So I'm going to go into my styles. And I'm going to create a new CSS file. I'm going to grab the one from the book, because if I'm missing something, I want you to be able to see what it is. So where is that? I'll just grab this. This is from Muroc. And I'm going to just grab it from their answer key. So this is chapter 10. Styles. Copy that one. Now I already have one with that name in here. All right, so I'm just going to make this say mine. All right. And now let's see if I paste that in. So there's stress.css. Okay, we've now got that. So let's come back to here and let's refresh. Still didn't do a flaming thing, which says to me the problem isn't in the CSS. The problem is in the communication between this file right here and the CSS. And now that I think about it, I may know what it is. So let's look. This probably has to go up a level, /stress. Let's do that and see if that was the problem we've had all along here. Well, looks a lot better. We're getting most stuff back, but we got to take all those other files and put a // in front of them as well. So // // this is fine. This would be // And this would be dot dot slash. So let's see what that did. Well, it's different if nothing else, huh? All right, I'm getting some stuff in here. Don't want the main RWD in here. I don't think that's really hurting anything, though. I think that stuff should be being overridden with my stuff. Nope. All right, so this looks better. It's not moved over the way that it should be, but it's definitely an improvement. And there's stress relief. All right, so you can see that indeed it is being shown as being the one, so to speak. And none of these links are working. So let's see. This is what it looks like. And let's see what we want it to look like. Okay. All right. So we want it to look like this. Maybe that's the way it's supposed to look. So let's knock this down. All right. And I'm going to move this over so I can see pretty much all of it. And then let's bring this up. Shouldn't be pushed over that far, though. I mean, that's a little ridiculous. So let's look. Okay, so let's look on here. Okay, so shape up, find the best fit for you. That looks okay. Okay, the stress relief. What is stress? Okay, additional resources. Actually, everything looks okay if this was just pushed over. So there's something goofy with that. So I'm sure that's one of my settings and the CSS is wrong. And let's see what happens when we do this. Now that looks good. All right, so it is now working just fine. It is now working just fine for the mobile view, and it's not working fine for the main view. So I'm going to do two things, and then we're taking a break. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab their copy of the CSS and change the name of that to book because I want to use my copy. So I'm going to make that book where it says mine. I don't need this one that says old, but the one that says mine, I'm going to change that to just stress.css. There we go. So now it's using my copy. All right. So let's see if that made it better, worse, or didn't change it a bit. Doesn't look like it changed anything. But it's still fine. So mine is still fine here for this. Okay, so it's when it starts to break, that still looks good. So it's right there. It's whatever that break point is right there. All right, that's making it bad, so to speak. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break because it's 8:59. I'm going to come back in just 5 minutes. In fact, you know what? There's nobody here. I'm just going to keep going. So let's just take a look at what's in here and see if we can figure out what the problem is. All right. So I'm going to start in here as I like to do or whatever is by going in and looking at the CSS file. All right. First of all, I've got a lot of stuff open here. Something I'm working on. So close everything that's in here. All right. Let me close all that. Let me close this as well. In fact, let me close every instance of this that I've got open and just leave the tab open here. All right. And now I'm going to bring this thing up again, but bring it up in code. All right. And we're going to start by going into styles and our stress.css file. Why? Because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. So I'm in my stress CSS file and I'm just going to start going through it, see if I somehow screwed something up. I mean, it could be something as simple as spelling a word wrong or whatever. Hmm, it's good. All right, we're up to our navigation menu. All right, before I look at the sidebar, I want to double check and make sure I didn't miss a curly brace in here. It should be giving me an error if I did, so, or a semicolon on the end again. It should be giving me an error if I've done one of those things, and I didn't see any errors in here. Again, typically, if there's something spelled wrong, though, you'll have an underscore, showing you that there's an error as far as the system is concerned someplace. I have not seen anything like that in here. All right, I'm down to the aside. Everything looks okay as far as I can tell. All right. So it's time to look at the media queries then. This should be a 5. It's the first thing I found in there that I've changed. That's 625, but that's just gonna move the padding over just a real little bit. And finally, for the small size, which appears to be working, so I don't really want to touch that. So let's do a file, save all, and let's see if that changed anything. All right, so I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to bring back up my under stress, the index file, and let's run it. It still is pushed over way too far. Again, it looks just fine. When I bring it down, so it's like when it gets right here, there, and above. Everything is working here. That looks, I mean, that actually looks good, I think, as far as the way they show it in the book. But it's when it gets to right here. I will continue to look at this and see if I can find out the problem. Let's see what the author has. So this is the author's right there. And let's go to stress. Well, theirs looks like this, which is not at all what mine looks like. And let's see, we got it over here. Yeah, theirs looks good there too. So what I'll do is I'll compare what I did versus what the author did and see if I can find any difference. And if I do, I'll let you know. All right. Okay. Well, that's not exactly the way I had this planned, but it's okay. Now, what I want to do, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this, I'll probably be done by 10 o'clock at the latest, if not earlier. And that is what I did was this. Okay. First thing I did was I went out to YouTube and I searched for Brad Traversy Flexbox. And again, he has this crash course that he made last year, and it is 47 minutes approximately long. All right. And I watched that and I took screenshots of what he had in there. Okay. And then I did the same thing with his CSS grid crash course, which, as you can see, that one's about 54 minutes long. So the total time invested in here, 54 and 47, all right, was about 103 minutes. So about an hour and 45 minutes between the two. Then what I did was I took screenshots of what he had in here. So to show you quickly, he came up and just had like 4 or 5 PowerPoints. Okay, and that's it. But then he had examples of everything that he did in here. So if I go to standard, this is what I did. I took screenshots of everything that he did. All right, so he started out by just using Emmet, putting in the exclamation point, just putting in the word hello there. Then he added a flex container with flex items in there. On the one I created based off of his stuff, I called it flex container and flex item. All right. It's no biggie, but just so you know. So when we put that in here, because we have done no CSS, it just looks like this. For lack of better words, it just looks like 3 paragraphs. All right. And then he came in and started adding some stuff. So this is just some standard CSS here. The border sizing, border box, no margin, no padding, and set up a font. But then he came in here and did this. Now, this is still right here. All right. I mean, what has he done? Well, what he has said was rather than just showing those 3 lines that say item 1, item 2, and item 3, he took each one of those and made them into a box. So 100 by 100 box that had a blue background and white text and a little bit of margin between the two of them. So in other words, he took this right here and he made it into this. Okay, but that still has nothing to do with Flexbox or anything else. But you'll notice that as soon as he came in here and he changed and added up here display flex, all right, to his flex container, immediately you can see how that changed between the two. Because by default, when you do that, it displays it, all right, going across in the row format. All right. So that's the only change. None of this changed. Okay. And then what he did next was he put a background color where this exists right here. And the reason that he did that was so that he could come in here and show you if you wanted to do this without using Flexbox, in other words, with floats, how you could do it as well. All right. This is all explained in the video itself. All right. And this flex container after, what he's showing right here is by default, what is going to happen is if you had the word hello like he's got right here, that would have appeared right there. It would have been part of this grouping. But by saying flex container after and setting the content to nothing, clearing everything and displaying block, he got it back down. All right. So then he went in and actually, he's like it says, it's been reset. He's got the flex container, etc. in there. So there's a justify content end. So you can see the stuff has been pushed over. There's a start, which as I wrote down there is the default, and there's a center. Now this is not meant to show you every single thing that's in here, but it does run through a lot of the different things that are in here. All right. Okay, then there's the space around. All right, and you can see that the space between here and here, they're even, and there's some space along the edges as well. Then there's a space between where there's virtually no space on the edges, but all that is sucked up in between the two. So that's a justify content space between. All right. Then he went in and he took the area in which these things are sitting and changed it from 100 pixels to 400 pixels. Why? So he could show you the alignment. All right. And you'll notice now with the alignment, it's basically here on the end, it's at the bottom, center. And here we've done two things. First of all, we've got an aligned self that's in there. We've got an aligned self, and we're using a CSS pseudo selector, which says grab the third one, and just that third one, basically justify that one to the end. All right, so just apply to that one right there the same thing we had applied right there, align items end. Here we've changed just to demonstrate using all of them. All right, so the first one is aligned to start, so it's in the upper left-hand corner. The second one is aligned center, so it's centered right on the page. And the third one is aligned self end, so it's in the bottom right corner. Here's the row reverse, kind of ugly. I guess I shouldn't have put the circles around it, but rather than saying 1, 2, 3, it now says 3, 2, 1. Here's using a flex direction column. All right, we still have the align item center, so you can see that they're centered in the middle here. But since it's a columnar format, it's going vertical as opposed to the horizontal that we had with row. We can again do an align item start. And notice what I put here. The justify content is always going to be whatever your main axis is, and the align items is always going to be on the cross axis. So your main axis is literally your main axis, and your secondary axis is going to be your cross axis. All right. So here again, notice we made it a little bigger. We've got the justify start. I just took everything that he had here and made a boatload of examples. So what you see on this one, all right. So notice it's flex direction column. Okay, the space between, but a line item start. And then if we look at the next one, we still got the align item start, but we put a justify content start. So the difference is, even when we made this bigger in the second example from 400 to 500, it still put it in the upper left-hand corner. There's an end. All right. And then he's resetting them right here. Okay. Now, what this is meant to show is if you put enough of these in here and you collapse it down, it's not going to wrap by default. But if you want it to wrap, you come in and when where you have your flex container, you set flex wrap to wrap, and then it will wrap. And that's what it's showing here. So as it says there, it'll wrap it as necessary. All right. Here's again, changing around the order. So we've got order 213, and you can see that that's now the order. So the advantage of doing that then is you're able to go in and make changes. You're able to go in there and make changes without having to move your HTML around. All right, so you're making the changes in your CSS. This is a grow, and what this says is this should be growing 3 times basically as fast as this. All right, and this should be growing twice as much as this. All right, and shrink would work the same way. And I think there'll be a shrink example soon. All right, so here these two are the same, and that one is twice as big. You can set these up any way that you want to set them up. All right. Here, if you put flex grow 1, here we're doing it just in the whole items. Now each one of them is going to take up a third of the screen. So here's the shrink, which again, rather than making them grow at a certain rate, they're making them shrink at a certain rate. All right. You can combine these together, and I think that's grow, rate, and basis. Row, shrink, and basis, if I didn't say that. That's pretty much it for that one. So to show you what I put out there, okay, is I put out the PowerPoints. That's the standard. And then in the other one, what he did was he went and built this thing right here. Okay. And I put in screenshots for that as well. Okay. So you've got that now where it says CSS Flexbox. But then I also went in and did the examples. All right. And it's ugly as heck. And it's ugly as heck because what I did was I would put in one thing and then I would comment it out and put in another thing and comment it out. This literally has virtually everything that Traversy put in here. All right. But like I said, I just set it up like that so you can kind of see just what the heck is going on. All right. Then I did a similar thing, and I want to spend a little bit more time on this with the grid. All right. So before we look at those examples, let's look at them in here. So again, he came up and he started with a couple PowerPoints. And as I mentioned the other day, because I was wrong, Flexbox is one-dimensional. So as it says there, you can use it either on a row or on a column. But grid is two-dimensional. So you can work with both rows and columns. Okay. Then I went back and did this. So in this example, what he did here, and again, these are screenshots of Traversy. I'm not at all claiming this is my stuff. It's not. But he came in and created 9 divs. Kind of neat here. What he did was he showed this is a shortcut. The dot means created a div called with a class of item. All right, it should have the word item. And then the $sign means put the current number down and make 9 of these. Now, if I said that too quickly or you didn't get it or whatever, all right, there's 2 things that I referenced in here just so you see them. They are so right here, if you're interested in this is Traversy's 35-minute presentation on Emmet, and this is an Emmet cheat sheet. Again, if you're interested. If you're not interested, hey, no problem. All right. So let's quickly buzz through these, and then I will show you how I did them as well. He does a nice job in here of creating examples. So this is what we had originally. All right. He sets up a little boilerplate CSS, and then he comes in with a container. 960 with some margin and some padding, which basically just moves this over a little bit. That's all it does. All right. Then he comes in and says for the item, for each item, you'll notice what he has here. He just like he did earlier, he comes in and he gives them a background and a color, etc. So this is what it looks like when we start. Then he adds the display flex. Now, the reason this is the thing that's not on flex, it's on grid. But with no display flex and no display grid, you get this. When you say display flex, you get this. When you say display grid, it looks like it did to begin with. All right. So this is a grid type of format with basically nothing else added to it. All right. So what are we doing here? Well, we're telling it basically that we want 2 sets of columns. Okay. The first set each one should be 100 pixels. The second set should be 200 pixels. All right, so you'll notice the way that this works is every even numbered one is 100 pixels, and every odd, I'm sorry, say that backwards. Every odd number one is 100 pixels. Every even numbered one is 200 pixels. All right. Then now we've got it in 3 rows. For the first set, 1, 4, and 7 are 100 pixels. The second set, 2, 5, and 8 are 200 pixels. And the third set, 3, 6, and 9 are 300 pixels. Here, it's kind of hard to see, but you can also use percentages here. And the middle group is 10%. This group is 10% wider than these are or these are. All right, so you can use anything in here. The FRs we talked about, the FRs are fractional units. So again, we're telling it to set up 2 columns and to have each column take up as much width as it possibly can take up. FRs are great. All right, because basically what they do is they tell you to take up the remaining room that you have. All right, so here it is in 3. And as you can see, very similar to what we had before, but the first 2 say 1 FR and the second, or the third one rather, says 2 FR, meaning that this group should be twice as wide as this or this. When you want to, we could have literally come in here in this example and just said 100 pixels, 100 pixels, 100 pixels, or whatever. But this says, give me 3 sets of columns and have each one of them take up as much room as possible. Here is, we are adding margin in here. This isn't the right way to do it. You can do it like this, but rather than using margin, you should be using gap. And here we've got both a row gap and a column gap, and each one of them, so again, the row gap and the column gap. And each one of these gaps are 10 pixels. If that's the case, that they're both the same size, you don't need to do it like this and say column gap 10 pixels, row gap 10 pixels. You can just say gap 10 pixels, like that. And it works the same way. But if they're different sizes, of course, you wouldn't want to do it that way. All right. So here, this particular slide, as it says in the comment on the bottom, as the content that you put inside of one of these increases, the size of each corresponding row entry increases. This is one row. So this increases based on the size of that. All right. If you put auto rows like this, look at what happens. Now, every single one of these rows, every row and every entry in every row is 200 pixels. And it basically just cuts off what was in here. It's not showing any longer. All right, you can use a minimum and a maximum. Here we're saying that the minimum size should be 100 pixels and the maximum size, by setting it to auto, what it's doing is it's saying, have it take up for the maximum size the amount of space it needs for whatever the content is. That's exactly what it's doing. All right. Here's another repeat. Okay. And when we look in here, you might say, well, why is that cut off? Well, look down here in the bottom. It still says 200 pixels, 100 and 200. All right. So again, there's a lot of different stuff that you can do with this. Here, it's basically saying grab the biggest one and make, 8 copies of it, for lack of better words. All right. Okay. So here is where they're going to come in and start using the numbering scheme. Remember, we talked about this, that you could use line numbers, you could use are named lines, named numbers, or numbered lines, name lines, and basically grid areas. Okay. Here's the thing that says to stretch. All right. Alignment, and notice what happens here. This is aligned to the top, but since it's filled up, these two are aligned to the top, so that just appears as white space. And when we put it at the center, white space, and when we put it at the bottom, white space. And here we're doing it with a columnar format as opposed to a row format. So there's a bunch of examples of that. All right. Here, they're using that pseudo selector with the nth of type to change the second one. We're making it 100 by 100. All right. And there's a few of them that are in here like that. So now what they're starting to do here is they're starting to take something and have it go across multiple columns. Again, I want to show you the example that he has in there. So I think it does a lot better. All right. Now notice it says here grid column for this one, 1-3. All right. That means row 1 should stretch across column 1, column 2, and end at the beginning of column 3, which is what that's saying. So that goes across 2 different columns. All right. This is another way of doing it, telling it to span 2. Okay. Now here we're doing it with row. So we're telling it to start with row 4, with row 2, and we're telling it to basically end at row 4. So it should span columns 2, rows 2 and 3. All right. And then he would basically set it all back again so he could go through a few more examples. But really, most of the stuff that's in here, we've looked at. All right. Now, what he did in here that I really liked, let me bounce back up here. What he did in here that I really liked was he went through after he did that, and the project I didn't even like, but I like this grid template, this thing. He makes this. This is the kind of a format that you'll often see. Now, I changed it up a little bit in the example I did because I liked the header spanning the whole way. The nav was okay, but I didn't like the footer. I didn't like the nav going down to the bottom. So I made the footer go all the way over here. So my nav's a little shorter, but I did what he did. Okay, so he set it up basically at the start. So it just had this. And the goal is, when we do this, it basically looks like that. So that's what it looks like at the start. Header, content, navigation, sidebar, and footer. Not much to look at, not much in there, period. All right. But that, again, is going to give you the one that they show in a couple slides. But this is what we want. All right. So he put in a little bit of basic startup CSS. The one thing that's a little different in here is notice that he did set the height to 100 VH. So the view height is set to 100% basically of the screen. So that's what he had when he started. All right. So why does this even matter? Well, let's look. He had a little bit of boilerplate code. We already looked at that. But then he said each header, each footer, so each one of the 5 sections in here, give it that background color, give it that text color, a little bit of padding, and give it a border. So that resulted in this. Well, now is where the magic will start to happen. All right. First thing is he came in here and he said, he set the display to grid. All right. Because we have 100 view height in there, setting that to grid stretched that. So in other words, rather than those things being real small, these all stretched. So they took up 100% of the screen height. All right. Now, what's the key point here is what's shown next in the box. Because notice what we're doing is we're setting up a grid template area. And what we're saying is we have 3 columns. The header should span all 1, 2, 3 columns. All right. Then in the second row, the navigation, the content, and the sidebar. And in the third row, the navigation, the footer, and the footer. This is his stuff. All right. So again, you want it to eventually look like this. So this is what he did. After the display grid, he set up a grid template area. After doing that, the next step, all right, after you did that save, it looked kind of like this, which is not very, really not at all what you want. But what we have not done yet is we have not yet come in and set up grid areas for each one of these. Now, when you do this, we didn't have to call these header, main content, except you can put anything, of course, you want in there. These names are important though, header, main, nav, aside, footer, because again, those are HTML5 compliant names. But notice what we did in here is we took each one of them and we made them a grid area. And the name we put in here, that name that we put after the grid area, that name has to be this name here. So header, content, navigation, sidebar, and footer. Header, nav, content, sidebar, and footer. All right, now you can see it's looking not perfect, but it's looking more like what we wanted it to look like. All right, so it's getting there. All right, I changed it again on mine. This is what I'm showing you here. The footer now goes all the way across. I like the way that looked better. So I made that change. What that change meant was previously this had said nav, footer, footer. I changed it to footer, footer, footer for my grid template area. All right. Then you have to go in and start doing some spacing. So what are we saying here? 1 FR, all right, then 4 FR, and then 1 FR. Now this is taking up everything, so it doesn't matter. But this is now 1 FR, this is now 4 FR, and this is now 1 FR. So column 1, column 2 should be 4 times the width of column 1 and 4 times the width of column 3. All right. Then finally, we do the same thing with rows. Now, again, it's going to involve a little tweaking, a little bit of playing around. But when you look at this, this is what he built. And on the left is what he wanted to build. Again, the only change that I made was I made the footer extend the entire way. All right. Now, just so you're aware of this, in the examples that I did, okay, so again, when I go into here and I put in crash course, this, I was playing around with this, but just like I showed you before, I've got in here, I've got virtually all of his CSS, all of his HTML, I should say. And then what I did was with the CSS, whenever we did something and I got it to work, then I commented it out. So you can see that. So basically, if you want to sit and play with this and learn more about it, all right, that's why I gave you this. Finally, as far as what else is in here, this is that demo that you were just shown. So here's what the demo looks like when you're done. And yep, it is at 100%. So again, this is taking up all 4 columns. Here, I guess 3 columns, whatever it is. I guess it's 3. So this right here is taking up 4 times what this and this are taking up. All right. And then the footer is basically a mirror image of the header. So what I did was I did all this stuff with the hope that it would help you. All right. You've got the Flexbox stuff in here. You've got the grid stuff in here. Okay. And that again is out there on the system. And I made closed it again. I made a GitHub repo of that. And that repo is called Traversy CSS. So again, there's the Flexbox stuff he did, the grid stuff he did, or those are the examples that I did from what he did. This is, I think these are the screenshots in here, and here's the demo, etc. So I tried putting that in there with the hope that that would help you with your understanding of what's going on in here. All right. I'm working on something too. I didn't even know if I should show it to you or not because I haven't finished it. But what I've tried to do, it's not done yet, so bear with me if you would. But I took my pet store example and I'm doing this to it. No, that's the original pet store. So where's the new one? So I've taken my pet store, let me make it down to 100% again, and done this to it. All right. And the idea is when you start to shrink it, this is using grid. Now it works fine until we get to a certain point, then it kind of goes to hell right there. All right. It's also been set up so that it automatically gives you that menu. All right. I'm still working on this. I'm going to try to, if I get this done today, I'll show it to you tomorrow. If I get this done tomorrow, I'm going to show it to you on Thursday. If I get it done Thursday, I'll show it to you next week. All right. So please make sure, because I'm finished, but please make sure then, if at all possible, that for tomorrow's class, so for tomorrow, Wednesday, the 15th of February, that you come in and please, if you would, look at it, at least page through, all right, at least page through chapters 11, 12, and 13. All right, 11 will take a while, maybe till the first break, I don't know. 12 will not take very long. If we can somehow get done with 11 and 12 by the break, all right, then we'll have the rest of the class to do 13. I'm going to literally with 13, I'm just going to create a form for you. And as we go and we find something that's in the chapter, I'm going to add it to the form. I'm starting with nothing. I don't have anything pre-done. It may look like garbage. All right, but then we'll go and style it. Chapter 14 is a very short chapter. And even chapter 15 is not a long chapter. So again, by the end of the week, we'll be done with the 15 chapters in the book. Next week, probably at the beginning of the week, I will give you some kind of a pretest. And then later on in the week, we will have maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. I don't know right now. We will have a test on 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, possibly a flex or a grid exercise. I don't know. But by the end of next week, I will also have lectured on 16, 17, and 18. Even if I do those Thursday, fine with me. And then we'll be done with this book. Then we will jump into Bootstrap. We will build a site or two using Bootstrap so you can see what it does for us. All right. And then we'll jump into JavaScript. Okay. So that's the plan. I will talk to you tomorrow morning at 8:05. Have a good day.